Investigations into a June 2022 crash showed a so-called, quote, hard clutch engagement that caused a catastrophic failure and crash which killed all 5 Marines aboard the aircraft. In 2023, 2 more Ospreys crashed last August in Australia, killing 3 Marines. And most recently, last November, a crash killed 8 airmen off the coast of Japan. These crashes, we know, are still under investigation, and each one, of course, is incredibly tragic. And we know that following the November crash, the Air Force, Marines, and Navy actually grounded their entire Osprey fleets. This was an appropriate decision to protect our service members, and by March, that order, of course, has been lifted, and the Osprey is, of course, flying again, but it is required to stay close to a landing zone. Now, I understand that the military has put in place maintenance and design upgrades to address some of the issues. We know that more are needed, and that's part of what the hearing is about. Given this aircraft's history and ongoing safety issues, I do believe we need to hear more about why the DoD concluded that the Osprey can return to service and how we will keep our people safe in the future. I appreciate Chairman Grothman calling this hearing and hope we can work in a bipartisan way to ensure the highest degree of protection for our armed forces. Only through continued congressional oversight can we protect the men and women who have chosen to serve our country. Finally, I just want to remind everyone why we're here today, to honor the service and sacrifice of the men and women in uniform who put themselves in harm's way to protect our nation, and specifically the 3 Marines lost in the Australia crash, the 8 airmen lost in the Japan crash, and the many other service members that we have lost over the course of the last few years. Now, Chairman Grothman, I ask for unanimous consent to enter each of those names into the record today. I've provided a list. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to yield back.
Okay, I'm pleased to introduce our witnesses here today, from left to right. Mr. Peter Belt, performing the duties of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness, come over from the Pentagon. In this capacity, he's the Principal Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. Next, we have Vice Admiral Carl Chibi, the Commander of Naval Air Systems Command. He's a skilled fighter pilot and has served in several operational capacities. He's also had an array of program management experience on various air platforms. And finally, Mr. Gary Kurtz is the Program Executive Director for Air Anti-Submarine Warfare, Assault, and Special Mission Programs. He oversees the acquisition and the total lifecycle support for a diverse range of programs, including the V-22 Joint Program Office. Thank you for all participating in today's hearing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Sit down. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. I'll remind the witnesses, we've read your testimony full in the hearing record, but please limit your testimony to 5 or 6 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it's on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, 5 minutes is up, and I'd like you to wrap up as soon as convenient. I now recognize Mr. Belt for his opening statement.
Chairman Grothman, Ranking Member Garcia, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for this opportunity to testify today about the Department of Defense's safety oversight and our ongoing work to ensure the safety of the V-22 Osprey aircraft. I am proud to be here today to discuss how we are inculcating a culture of safety across the department, and specifically how our actions are driving the safe return of the V-22 Osprey to flight. Our partnerships across the department are key to maintaining that culture of safety. And I'm pleased to be here today with Vice Admiral Carl Chevy and Mr. Gary Kurtz to describe the department's efforts to ensure the safety of the V-22 Osprey and our service members. I also want to thank personally the family members of those who have suffered losses and tell them directly, you have my commitment on behalf of the department to continue to act as safely as possible, so we never have to try to work As a department, it is our solemn duty to protect our greatest resource, our people. We continuously underscore the importance of safety at every level in the department, from our newest recruit to our most senior commander, to ensure an environment where safety and risk management remain a core value ingrained as an essential and integrated part of our operations. The department continues to proactively promote a culture of safety where there is a shared commitment, emphasis, and urgency placed on deliberate communications, consistent resourcing, and elevated ownership of risk decisions. I am in the position of performing the duties of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. One of my office's primary responsibilities is in establishing and overseeing safety policies, plans, and programs to support all the department's components in managing risk and preventing accidents and injuries to our military and civilian personnel. We execute our safety mission through the Defense Safety Oversight Council, which is the department's senior safety forum that provides governance on department-wide safety efforts and addresses the most significant challenges facing the safety and health of our people. The Defense Safety Oversight Council brings together senior leaders from across the department to elevate safety decisions and guide our comprehensive and cross-cutting efforts to drive behavioral change, review safety trends, improve awareness, shared lessons learned, and confirm priorities, ensuring we are taking deliberate actions to reduce safety risk, enhance readiness, and protect our most valuable resource, our people. The Defense Safety Oversight Council reports to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who receives regular updates on safety and occupational health through the department's Workforce Council, the Deputy's Workforce Council. The Joint Safety Council is a key component of our departmental safety governance structure, and it serves an essential institutional role in developing a common understanding of operational mishaps involving joint programs. It is also a key venue for collaborating to synchronize communications and share mishap lessons learned and best practices for mitigating risk. From the moment the most recent Osprey mishap occurred, the department's senior safety leaders, in partnership with the Defense Safety Oversight Council, the Joint Safety Council, and the military departments were actively collaborating on all aspects of the V-22's return to flight. The department will continue to collectively leverage our robust safety governance processes to maximize our collaborative approach for improving safety-focused outcomes. As a department, we are working relentlessly and prioritizing solutions that minimize risks and other hazards to the well-being of our service members by understanding causal mishap factors, identifying mitigations, addressing exposures, strengthening policy, and incorporating actions to prevent both on and off-duty accidents. The department is committed to instituting an effective and enduring department-wide culture of safety that yields safer workplaces, fewer mishaps, enhanced readiness, and that supports one of Secretary Austin's key priorities, taking care of people. The Defense Safety Oversight Council and the Joint Safety Council are essential to our collaborative mishap reduction efforts to proactively identify trends and indicators, share best practice and lessons learned, and mitigate risks to ensure the safest possible operational training environments for our service members. We will continue to advocate for enhanced synergy, emphasis, and urgency on deliberate communications, consistent resourcing, and elevated ownership of the risk decisions to preserve operational capabilities and protect our most vital assets, the service members who defend our nation and the civilian employees who support them. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you how seriously we take our safety oversight responsibilities and how we are consistently and proactively striving to detect and mitigate risks before mishaps occur. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to your questions.
Admiral Chevy.
Chairman Grothman, Ranking Member Garcia, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs, thank you for the opportunity to address the status of the V-22 Osprey program with you today. I am Vice Admiral Carl Chevy, and I currently serve as the Commander of Naval Air Systems Command, a position I've held since September 2021. With me today to my left is Mr. Gary Kurtz, the Program Executive Officer for Air, Anti-Submarine Warfare, Assault, and Special Mission Programs. The V-22 program is part of his portfolio, and he, along with the V-22 Program Manager, are responsible for the overall acquisition lifecycle and risk management of the V-22 program. I, along with my team, am responsible for the development, integration, testing, fielding, and sustaining of naval aviation capabilities. Our focus is ensuring we deliver the warfighting capability that the fleet, that our sons and daughters need to execute their mission successfully and return home safely. This has been and continues to be our North Star for myself as the Nav Air Commander, along with my teammates Vice Admiral Dan Cheever, the Commander of Naval Air Forces, Lieutenant General Bradford Gehring, the Deputy Commandant for Marine Aviation, and Lieutenant General Tony Barnfine, the Air Force Special Operations Commander. Currently at Nav Air, I have oversight of just over 4,000 aircraft across 40 different types. This includes the V-22 program, which today operates as a joint program of 434 aircraft across U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, and Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force. I am committed to ensuring the safety of the V-22 to perform its mission, just like the 40 other aircraft types that I am responsible for. As the commander of Nav Air, I serve as the Airworthiness Authority for Naval Aviation, somewhat akin to the role of FAA in a commercial parallel. I am responsible for implementing and maintaining the technical standards required to establish and maintain safe flight operations. If cases arise in which we can no longer maintain that standard, I will take the appropriate action, including grounding of aircraft until deemed safe for flight. Since I have arrived at Nav Air in September of 2021, we have grounded the F-18, the F-35, the T-45, the V-22, the P-3, and the H-53 aircraft due to safety concerns. The decision to ground these aircraft were not made lightly due to operational impacts. Our ability and responsibility to ensure continued safe flight operations is at the forefront of every decision we make. Naval aviation is an inherently dangerous profession. Our objective is to provide aircraft that are safe to execute their mission while proactively managing every platform so as to prevent mishaps from ever occurring. Throughout the life of a program, we continuously assess program risks based on engineering and test data, quality reports, manufacturing data, fleet feedback, and mishap investigations. This process of reviewing our risks is continuous and considers manning, training, and equipment aspects of safety across the spectrum of how our platforms are designed, built, operated, and maintained. In the event that a mishap does occur, which can range from a relatively minor ground incident to a catastrophic loss of life or aircraft, a safety investigation board is established to investigate the mishap, determine the root cause, and make recommendations to prevent future incidents. The safety board is comprised of experts across all required technical competencies so that we reach a full understanding of what happened, how it happened, and what we can do to prevent the event from ever occurring again. In the past 2.5 years, we have experienced 4 mishaps with the V-22 program that have resulted in the loss of 20 of our service members and 4 aircraft. This has the full attention and support of USN, USMC, and U.S. Air Force leadership. I would like to take a couple minutes to walk you through what we have done to address this issue with a clear understanding there is still much work to be done. While I will address the most recent mishap, this same process is used for every mishap for all of our platforms. On 29 November 2023, a CV-22 was involved in a crash that resulted in the loss of 8 airmen and the aircraft. As a result, the AFSOC commander immediately established a safety investigation board to investigate the mishap that included experts from the Navy, the Air Force, and industry. On 6 December 2023, data was presented to myself that indicated that the platform had experienced a catastrophic material failure that we have never seen before in the V-22 program. Based on that data, I made the decision to ground all V-22s until we understood the failure mode and we could safely return the aircraft to flight. Over the next couple months, Service Aviation leadership engaged with the Safety Board President to review the mishap investigation findings. The Safety Board was able to determine the sequence of events that occurred, and we are confident we know the material root cause of the November mishap. Based on the Safety Board's findings, Service Aviation leadership developed a path to allow for a return to restricted flight operations through implementation of specific controls. On 8 March 2024, the V-22 was returned to a flying status and has safely flown over 7,000 hours since then. Today, we are methodically looking at material and non-material changes that we can make to allow for a full mission set without controls in place. I will not certify the V-22 to return to unrestricted flight operations until I am satisfied that we have sufficiently addressed the issues that may affect the safety of the aircraft. Based on the data that I have today, I'm expecting that this will not occur before mid-2025. In parallel, I have launched a comprehensive review of the V-22 program. This effort is ongoing and will ensure we are holistically looking at all aspects of the program across manning, training, and equipping, and proactively identifying additional actions outside of mishap reviews that enable safe, reliable, and affordable flight operations. As we have findings from the comprehensive review, I will take the necessary actions to ensure continued safe flight operations. This is an ongoing process, and my expectation is the full comprehensive review will take another 6 to 9 months. The NAVAIR and V-22 Joint Program teams are committed to ensuring the safety, reliability, and operational effectiveness of these critical platforms. By the ongoing comprehensive review of the V-22 program, we will continue to pursue safety improvements where needed. As the NAVAIR commander, I have a vested interest in the safety of this platform and all aircraft for which I am responsible, and I will not certify an aircraft to perform a mission unless confident in the ability of that aircraft to do so safely. Thank you. Both Mr. Kurtz and myself look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Kurtz, it's my understanding you don't have an opening statement, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to make any opening remarks you want to.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, and as well, Ranking Member Garcia. It is truly my honor to be here today to testify. I associate my comments with Vice Admiral Chevy's as a joint statement, and I look forward to your comments today.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Fallon, we'll go a little bit out of order today.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Very gracious of you to do so. In this room today, it looks like we have some Gold Star families. And your presence here is recognized. I'm deeply sorry for your loss. I'm a member of the Armed Services Committee and also a veteran myself, and I think it's incumbent upon us as members of Congress to do everything we can to ensure that the military maintains the highest degrees and focus and prioritizes safety. Everybody says they do, but sometimes it's words, and we need actions to back that up. I have had a fight with one of the branches on rollovers with Humvees, and we're losing military members. And we have authorized the money, we have appropriated the money, and then we have to take them kicking and screaming to actually spend the money on safety. So I'm very acutely sensitive to what we're talking about here. Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing. Equipment sometimes fails, and it's oftentimes when equipment fails, tragedy is the result. As an Air Force veteran, I recall the T-37, which was a trainer they used to use, and it had an incredible safety record. I think when I was in the service, it was like 30 years plus where there had been no fatalities because of it. And that's a standard that needs to be followed. So it is possible to operate equipment that goes very fast and do it in a safe manner. Admiral, has the DoD been actively using information from the safety investigations of the Osprey crashes to determine modifications to improve the system?
Sir, thank you for that question. As I mentioned in my statement, we use data continuously through the life of a program to identify the risks that are for that platform. More importantly, to make sure we identify the controls and the mitigations that we can put in place to minimize or to eliminate that risk from ever occurring with the aircraft. So yes, we use all sources of information, including the safety investigations, to determine the root cause and to address the root cause through mitigations and controls.
Two questions, Admiral. If you've first one is, have you collected data on whether or not these failures have increased or decreased since these modifications have been made? And second question is, will you commit to providing this data to the committee if it exists?
Sir, can you clarify your first question? I just want to make sure I answer it.
Have you collected data on whether the Osprey failures have increased or decreased since the modifications have been made? And if there's data that you have collected, will you share it with the committee?
Okay, I just want to since the modifications have been made, I just want to make sure I'm addressing yours.
Okay.
So we take all the information on. If there are repeat issues that are causing risk to our platform or to our aircrew, we take the appropriate actions to put the controls in place to minimize or to remove that risk from the platform.
But there's no data? You know, I'm talking about just simply measures. You take actions, but we want to make sure those actions are effective. And I apologize because I only have a little bit limited amount of time here. Admiral, how many deaths have occurred from accidents on the Osprey?
Sir, I'll answer it in two different ways. Since I have been in the seat in the last 2.5 years, we have lost 4 aircraft and 20 of our service members. Many of the service members' families are right behind me right now.
Well, do you know the total number?
The total number of the platform across, before it was IOC and after IOC, the total number that I'm tracking is 64 service members.
And then I would guessing injuries as well, if people survive these crashes.
The total number of fatalities that I'm tracking is 64 fatalities total and 93 injuries.
Okay. So this is a lot of time. I have one more question. The hard clutch engagement, which apparently is a fleet-wide program that we've known about for years. The pilot shifts the gears and the clutch engages. And sometimes when this happens, when this HCE, it causes complete loss of control of the aircraft. And apparently there's nothing the pilot can do about it. On June 8th of 2022, Gold Star families were told that this was modified and this risk was limited. 99% chance that this wouldn't happen. Where does that number come from?
Sir, thank you for the question. For hard clutches, you know, through the life of the program, we have had 19 hard clutch events. In 2022, we had a sharp increase in the number of hard clutches. Based on the data that I had at that time, the first control that we put in place was we modified our aircrew procedures so that they would be in a safe environment should a hard clutch event did occur. Subsequent to that, there was additional hard clutch events, and we received data back from the Glamis mishap that indicated that the controls that we had in place were insufficient. The team executed a statistical analysis on all the mishaps that did occur with hard clutches and determined that the failure mode that we have seen, even though we have never been able to repeat the failure in test, the failure mode that we are seeing is called a wear-out mode. Over time, the clutch wears out and has a higher susceptibility to slipping, which will cause a hard clutch event. Based on that data, in March of 2023, I grounded the fleet and mandated that all aircraft will remove clutches that have over 800 hours. That has been completed, and we have flown numerous hours since then without a hard clutch event. I want to make this point clear, though. That has not eliminated the risk. We are currently, and I'll let the PEO kind of talk about this, we are currently in testing of a follow-on design for the clutch, not only to minimize the exposure, but to eliminate this risk from occurring again. I'll let Mr. Kurtz kind of take over from there.
So there's never been there has been an HCE prior to the 800 hours?
Sir, there have been no hard clutch events since we implemented the 800-hour time. The time limit on the input cool assemblies.
Yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you to our witnesses. Admiral, just to make sure that we're on the same page, what is a Class A accident, and what is the current Marines Class A accident rate per 100,000 flight hours?
A Class A mishap is determined loss of aircraft, loss of life, or a certain dollar amount to repair the aircraft is how it's defined. I don't have the dollar amount in front of me, but I can get that back to you.
And what is the accident rate per 100,000 flight hours?
Sir, can you just, I just want to make sure that I'm answering your specific question for the V-22 for the Marine Corps, for the overall aviation for Marine Corps. Which one would you like?
For the V-22.
The V-22 overall mishap rate across all 3 services is 4.1 mishaps per 100,000 flight hours. For the U.S. Marine Corps, it is 3.29 mishaps per 100,000 flight hours.
And if you separate the current Marines Class A accident rate and the current Air Force Class A accident rate per 100,000 flight hours, including the November 2023 crash, there is a difference. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There's a difference between the Class A mishap rate between the U.S. Marine Corps and the U.S. Air Force.
And do you get a sense of why there's a discrepancy there, or why that exists?
Sir, when we do mishap investigations, we look at all aspects across manning, training, and equipment to identify the root cause and put the corrective actions in place so to minimize or to eliminate that risk from ever occurring again. With the specifics on why the U.S. Air Force V-22 mishap rate is higher than the U.S. Marine Corps, I think that's a question that the U.S. Air Force needs to take on.
Well, I just want to note, I think this is an important discrepancy. And I think it's one that should be investigated and discussed more openly. And there is clearly a difference in discrepancy between both the Air Force and the Marines. And so I understand, I appreciate your answer, but I just, for the record, Mr. Chairman, I think that that's something that needs to be addressed, and certainly I think I look forward to more answers on. Thank you for that. Admiral, is there any reason to believe tilt rotor technology is any less safe than traditional fixed wing or rotor aircraft?
Sir, thank you for that question. I'll answer from my capacity as airworthiness. More safe or less safe, my objective is to do an analysis of the data throughout the entire life cycle of a program to make it as safe as you possibly can. So whether or not one is more or less safe, it's interesting, but what I'm focused on is increasing the safety posture across all of our platforms and eliminate mishaps to the max extent possible by proactively managing each one of our aircraft.
I appreciate that, and obviously, I'm not an expert on the aircraft safety, but certainly I slightly maybe have a different perspective. I think that if there is a difference in if something is more safe or less, I actually think that matters and should be taken into consideration as we are making these assessments.
Yes, sir.
Admiral, are you confident that the current restrictions on aircraft operations are adequate?
Sir, thank you for that question. Yes.
Okay.
It was a very deliberate, methodical, data-driven process that we went through. We fully vetted, we understood exactly what occurred on the most recent mishap. We fully vetted the controls that we put in place. I went and personally briefed all the Air Force, the Navy, as well as the Japanese crews, so they had a full understanding of what happened in this mishap. We need to build trust with the air crews, and the Marine Corps did that on their side as well. I'm confident that the controls that are put in place based on the data I have today allow for return to flight in a restricted flight envelope only.
Do you, like myself, just going back, are you, like myself, concerned about the difference between the Air Force and the Marine discrepancy that exists? Is that a concern?
Sir, I've had direct conversations with the AFSOC commander, Lieutenant General Barnfind. He is addressing the issue and the discrepancy between the mishap rates between his V-22 fleet and the other V-22 fleets. From my perspective, I am trying to lower the overall V-22 mishap rate holistically.
Thank you. Do you think that as it relates to the timeline for redesigning, testing, and deploying the new gearboxes to replace the current clutch system, how would you describe that process and where are we at?
Sir, I'll start and I'll hand it over to Mr. Kurtz to kind of follow up. I mentioned the hard clutch. I mentioned the controls that we put in place for removing them at 800 hours to remove them at a certain time limit to minimize the exposure of that risk. We modified procedures as well from the aircrew perspective to give them good procedures to execute should that incident occur again. But we have not eliminated that risk. We will not eliminate that risk until we have a redesigned clutch. That is in testing right now, and I am pushing from my seat as the airworthiness, the safety advocate to get that out to the fleet as soon as we possibly can. I'll hand it over to Mr. Kurtz.
Yes, sir. Just to follow up on Vice Admiral Chevy's comments, we have understood through root cause analysis that has allowed us to move forward very aggressively with a new design to that clutch. That clutch testing is expected to start in the next couple of months, and we anticipate that we will have a new design clutch fielding in the mid-2025 timeframe.
And then I have other questions, but just to conclude, I know my time has run out. Just Admiral, I know that sometimes certain upgrades to craft and to mechanical concerns, oftentimes decisions are made about when to make an upgrade to a certain craft depending on when we're using certain aircraft in certain missions. And obviously safety is always, I know, a priority, but frequency of use, pace of use, I think also obviously sometimes has an impact on certain types of equipment, vehicles that we may use. And I know that we try to be as selective as possible in prioritizing safety and what's used. But do you have any reason to believe that that mechanical, when we've tried to upgrade the V-22 or frequency of use has had, or could possibly be any of the factors that have led to some of the concerns that we share about the V-22 and some of the accidents that we have seen?
Sure, I want to make sure I clearly understand your question. Are you, can you just state that one more time? I just want to
Sure. Let me maybe be more clear. Like oftentimes we make decisions when we're going to actually make mechanical improvements to vehicle or to aircraft, dependent on frequency of use. Do you think that issue or those issues could have anything to do with any of the accidents or the concerns that we share about the V-22?
Sure, thank you for that question. Based on the data I have today, I would say no, that has not been a causal factor. A key point of the comprehensive review that we're executing today is to holistically look across manning, training, and equipment across all aspects of the program to ensure continued safe outcomes for the V-22 platform. That is going to take another 6 to 9 months to finish up. That'll be a very thorough, holistic, and it's a proactive measure we're going after to implement the necessary controls across manning, training, and equipment to ensure
How are you
continued safe flight
entitled to
operations
any
of the
money?
V-22 program.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the chairman.
Sure. Okay, I recall myself. To ensure we're getting fair, accurate,
How are you
transparent
entitled to any
answers from
money
each of
right
you,
now?
I'm
Federal
starting
Reserve
off
doesn't
with
have
some
any
good
arms.
issues.
Well, we've heard of this
Does any
theory.
of
I think
you
it's one of the
within the
latest.
It's not a
government outside
theory,
the
it's a
federal
congressional
Well,
statute.
I think
not
there's
to
a
discuss
you
any
raised the
topic
difference
related to the
between
Osprey
revenue
program
and net
remaining up
income.
to date.
There are other places throughout our laws.
Mr. Chairman, no.
I can tell you we've looked at this issue.
No.
We do believe
sir.
wholeheartedly
Okay, good.
everyone is complying with the
Now
statute.
we're
I know you
important
believe that,
understand
but
this
if you
hearing
look
open
at
and
what,
honest
if you
discussion.
I'm aware with what you
if
said.
you
Revenue
read,
and net
if you read
income.
the,
Explain why
exactly,
Class
just finish
A
my question.
aircraft
Sure.
If you
mishaps
read
are,
the opinion,
or
and I
what
did,
Class A aircraft
and you read the
mishaps are,
statute,
and what
it
criteria
says
is
here,
involved in
bigger than
determining
Dallas.
if an aircraft crash
The federal,
qualifies
you
as
can
a
only
Class A
get your
mishap.
money from the Federal Reserve
Yes, sir.
out of
For-
earnings.
At a high level, Class A mishap is
Now,
loss of
the
aircraft,
Federal
loss
Reserve
of
has
life.
not had any
There's a
earnings
certain dollar threshold
since
from the damages.
September
I do
of
not have that. I
2022.
can
Isn't that
take that one for the
correct?
record.
No, that's not
Okay,
correct.
you've
From a
testified
net income
All you have to
perspective,
do is
you're
go,
right. But they've generated
many
lots
more
of
ask
fees
OMB.
and income.
in the Marines.
I appreciate what you're saying. I'm happy to discuss this with you, but I think we've
my
looked at
point
this.
is,
I'm sorry, I just wanna
everything,
make sure.
every penny you've gotten
There have
under
been
this
many-
congressional
I don't think
statute,
Congress wanted
every
the
penny
CFPB to be
that
sudden.
you've gotten, if I could finish my thought,
Sure.
I know you don't like to hear this, but the law is the law. You've been operating illegally.
No, that's not true.
I'm sorry for the, to
Any-
make sure
to be
clarify
sudden
answering your
this with
question. Are
you,
you
but
asking
I
if
think
we
we've
we
looked
have
at
mishaps
point is
across the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, and the V-22?
You have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm
We have
happy
had
to
Class
discuss this
A's
with
through
you,
D's
but
across the different services with the V-22 program.
Right, and many more
I think
But
we've
my
looked at
point
this.
is,
expectation than in the Navy, correct?
Sir, I would not characterize as many more. The reason we
I think we've
we
looked at
established
point is,
this mishap rate,
everything,
it's
every
per 100,000
penny you've
flight
gotten
hours.
under this
Right.
congressional
I don't think
statute,
Congress wanted
every
the
penny
CFPB to be
that
sudden.
you've gotten,
has
if
so
I could
far.
finish my thought.
Sure.
I know you don't like to hear this.
I would
but
caution
the
us
law is
all
the
to
law.
make sure we're
You've
having
been
apples to
operating
apples
illegally.
comparison.
No,
And
that's
why
not
we try
true,
to
sir.
normalize it per
Yes, you have.
100,000 flight
There
hours.
have been no earnings.
Okay.
Doesn't this put in jeopardy every one of your rules?
We've heard this.
And
theory.
every
We're
one of,
happy to
and every,
discuss it.
well, you're gonna hear it again,
Staff
because it's the law.
personnel.
We didn't say revenue in the statute, we said earnings.
The email says, and I quote, "As for the command investigations, not all Class A mishaps have command investigations. Over the past 5 years, there have been 2 command investigations related to a V-22 Class A mishap. Admiral Chevy, can you explain what a command investigation is?"
Sir, if you're allowed, I'd like to get Mr. Bell to kind of answer this question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your question. So a command investigation is undertaken in different ways by the different military departments, largely to get after a set of facts and potentially determine what, if any, additional actions need to be taken at that point, whether that has to do with matters of accountability or matters of remedy given a particular set of circumstances.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm trying to understand how the department can accurately determine issues with the Osprey aircraft, maintenance, or personnel that may have caused a mishap if there's not an investigation done with every single Class A mishap? Why is an investigation not done every time?
Let me jump in there. So with that question, for every Class A mishap, there is a safety
my
investigation
point
board
is
that is conducted, where we have full unfettered access to all the data, so that we can holistically look at the program, what caused this issue, and more importantly, what controls can we put in place to minimize or eliminate this risk from ever occurring again in the future. Every Class A has a mishap investigation.
I think we've looked at
point
those.
is everything, every penny you.
Investigations and safety investigations. Can you give us an example of something that be included in a safety investigation, not included in a command investigation?
I think we've looked
My
at
point
this.
is
Give an
everything,
example of
every
something that would be
penny
included in
you've
a
got.
safety
none of it-
investigation
Right.
or not. It would be.
I don't think Congress
privileged
wanted-
witness. It would be it would be an analysis. It would be potentially some statements from witnesses. Those would be kind of a couple examples of things that would not be in the command investigation, but that we want access to during the safety investigation. We need
Right.
access. Okay.
I don't think
There's
Congress wanted
every
more stuff
penny-
available in the safety investigation, right?
Finish my
Yes, sir.
thought.
Sure.
And are they they're not publicly made available, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Maybe to be
You've
sudden.
gotten,
Listen,
if I
Mr.
could
Belk,
finish my
as you know, the
thought.
committee sent
I
a
know
letter
you-
to the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, in December, asking for documents and information related to all mishap investigations. To date, the department has refused to share the safety investigations with this committee,
Sure.
despite
I know you
numerous
don't like to
offers
hear this,
to review the
but the
safety
law is the law.
investigations
You've
in a
been operating
sanitized
illegally.
manner or in
No.
camera as an accommodation. Why has the department refused to provide access to these reports?
There have been no.
Congressman, thank you for your question. So the department remains committed to being transparent and sharing information related to any of these mishaps, and we do so largely at the conclusion of our command investigations, which we do provide to the Congress upon request and on circumstances. With respect to safety investigations are designed to maximize the fullest transparency possible with those who are
No, that's not
participating
true,
in
sir.
the investigation,
There
so
have
we can
been more.
maximize our opportunity to understand
Doesn't
what
this
went
put in
right, what
jeopardy
went wrong,
every one
and
of
how to
your
give
rules?
people access to an understanding of those actions by
Jeopardy
providing
every
those
one of your
participants
rules.
safety privilege. The content of those safety investigations relevant to how to get after the solution to a particular mishap event are then informed or provided through the two command investigations and then be able to be acted upon, which we then would be in a position to be shared with the
Every
We'll come
one
back
of
to that
your
later.
We've
rules
we've heard this
and
issue
every
before,
one
and
of
I'm happy to
and every.
discuss.
Well, you're going to hear it again.
I'm curious about the rate of Osprey mishaps compared to other aircraft, and I'm saying just mishaps non-combat related. Are the mishaps of the Osprey higher or lower than other military air platforms?
One of your rules.
We've heard this
And
theory
every
before,
one
and
of
I'm happy to
and every.
discuss it.
Well, you're going to hear it.
So I'll just from most
One
of
of
them,
happy to
and every.
we had this discussion yesterday about combat
And-
versus
and-
non-combat.
We've heard
Most of
this
our
And
theory
every
before,
one
and I'm
of-
happy to
and
discuss it.
occur in non-combat mission sets. We train like we fight, and so we train in very realistic environments. We want our air crew to train in that environment, and so there's a higher likelihood that we're going to have a mishap in a training accident than we are in a combat mission. With regards to your specific question, the overall mishap rate across all the systems, all the platforms at V-22 is 4.1. The Marine
I'm
Corps
happy
is
to-
slightly
And every-
higher
well, you're
than
gonna
the
hear it
overall
again,
mishap rate.
'cause it's
The Air
law.
Force is higher than the mishap rate.
We didn't say
The U.S.
revenue
Navy right
in the
now is
statute. We
slightly
said
lower than the
earnings.
mishap rate across the other platforms. Again, I just want to reiterate,
Yeah, I'm not thinking I'm getting the answer I want, but we're well over my time. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The V-22 Osprey, like all military aircraft, is only as good as it is safe. If maintenance issues or even worse, significant mechanical failures endanger the life of our service members, then the United States military cannot rely on the Osprey's unique capabilities, no matter how unique those capabilities may be. In the last 2 years, the V-22s have been involved in 4 major fatal accidents, which have resulted in the deaths of 20 service members just in the last year. These are catastrophes where American service members lost their lives. And it's not just a problem with the Osprey. In military aircraft across the board, safety and readiness metrics are dropping.
Democrats are
So far this
attempting to
year,
paint
Army
everyone
aircraft
Donald
have
Trump is
experienced twice the rate of major incidents than any year in the last decade. Air Force major incidents hit a 5-year high in the fiscal year 2023. Despite us continuing to raise our defense budget, almost nearing $1 trillion in the one we're currently debating. Mr. Belk, can you explain the reasons underlying this troubling trend?
Congressman, thank you for your question. With respect to some of the specific data you've shared, what I'd like to do is come back with some additional context and response for we can get after some of the more specifics. Generally speaking, what I would say is that as the force continues to transform and shift in the types of training and operations that it's doing to mitigate and address new and emerging threat contexts, this is placing additional stress on the force. Whether or not this translates into additional mishaps or not, we're still looking at very closely, but we're monitoring that very closely to ensure that as we continue to transform as a force, we understand how we do so as we operate and train in the safest manner possible.
Recent data suggests that the military is relying on aircraft that are not meeting readiness goals. In 2022, the GAO released a report that studied readiness among 49 different aircrafts over the span of a decade. GAO found that only one of those aircrafts, met their mission
Democrats
readiness
are
goals
attempting
every
to
year,
paint
and only 4 met their readiness goals a majority of the years studied. And 26 of those aircraft did not meet readiness goals in a single year between 2011 and 2001. This trend is both alarming and unacceptable.
Democrats are
I understand that the
attempting to
V-22 has
paint
now been
everyone Donald Trump
approved
is
to return
considering
to
be
limited
his running
operation,
mate, as
despite there
extreme
being
as
no
the
clear
former president
conclusion of the
narrows a field
investigation of the most
Republicans
recent
vying
crash. So, Mr. Belk,
to be his
what did
next
the
vice
DoD
president. Trump's
learn
reported
about the
shortlist was a breath of
accident and its return to
personalities and
flight
backgrounds,
assessment,
such as
and how exactly does that
business-minded
differ
governor
from the
Doug Burgum.
initial crash
In addition to
investigation?
more
So, Congressman, if I understand the question correctly, we learned, I would say, when I say we in OSD, we in with the military departments, learned rather contemporaneously about the incident that we're talking about in November. In terms of the approach, we take and I'll defer to Admiral Chevy to speak to some of the specifics on how we conduct
Democrats are
upon
attempting to
notification of
paint
a mishap
everyone
at
Donald Trump is
a
considering
military
to
department
be
or
his
service
running
level.
mate, as
What I would say
extreme
is
as the
that
former
from
president
my
narrows a
perspective,
field of Republicans
we
vying to
approach
be
this
his next
particular
vice
incident with the same
president.
level of rigor and care and consideration in terms of how to get after the fundamental understanding of the events that transpired and led to the incident, and then the mitigation steps that need to be taken as we learned information to ensure the continued safest environment, operating environment, and training environment for our service members, and then what, if any, steps to include the stand down that Admiral Chevy alluded to continue the safest environment possible.
As extreme as
Yeah, I mean,
the
Lieutenant Colonel
former
Eric
president narrows a
Cranford, the
field of
squadron commander where the
Republicans
most
vying to
recent
be his
crash
next
occurred,
vice president.
stated,
Trump's
quote,
reported
"We're looking at 750,000 flight hours of history making data-driven decisions," end quote. And so what we're looking for is more transparency in terms of this data. We want to know what y'all are finding out from it, because transparency equals heightened scrutiny, and we need the heightened scrutiny right now, as we've lost 20 service members in 1 year. So, Mr. Belk, your job is to ensure the readiness of the total force. So where does the fault lie for the mission readiness failures that GAO identified, and will you take responsibility for addressing them?
So, Congressman, I can assure you that the department at every echelon and every level takes very seriously matters of accountability upon understanding the facts and circumstances around a particular event, and then what, if any, steps need to be taken to either hold organizations or individuals accountable for errors or actions that need to be held accountable for. So upon understanding those circumstances and learning those events, you have my commitment that we will continue to do those things that need to ensure that accountability is meted out and addressed upon learning about the specifics in those instances. I think also, as Admiral Chevy alluded to, some of these investigations remain open. So those close out, we will be in a position to maximize the amount of transparency about the information that we learn from those investigations to this committee and elsewhere within the Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, because the GAO report that found that 26 different military aircraft did not meet the readiness goals in any of the years that they were studied is a cause of great concern. We don't want to be in the same place a few years from now with a different aircraft with 20 new service members who lost their lives during a training mission. Thank you so much, Neil.
Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this committee, and I acknowledge members of the Gold Star families
Is
who
there
are
a
here
way
today.
for me
Thank you for
to
being
take
here.
the audio
Appreciate
off
you.
my computer so I'm not
And,
listening to this?
Sorry that this is what brings us
Or
together.
what do you mean? Like, if I'm trying to
with
edit something
witnesses,
else and I can take
This is
the
just a
audio
little
off
thing.
of
You
this,
don't
I
need to
can,
thank me for every question.
listen to
I don't think you
like
mean it.
what I'm editing on Premiere.
And I think it's
Critical challenges
obsequious.
that we
So
can
let's not
discuss tonight.
play that game. So let's just get right to it. Mr. Belk, GAO, and I'm going to dovetail on what Mr. Frost said just a second ago, reported in 2022 that only 52% of Marine V-22s were ready to fly. Give us whatever you manage transparency, but you want the money from the taxpayer to pay for this. You understand that that's ironic, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's disrespectful to this body. It is our obligation to oversee. That's why you're here, and you don't want to give us full access. I get it. You think somebody up here is going to leak, but the bottom line is, you need to be held accountable. We need to see. Because we need to know what's going to happen next with the program, because we're concerned about mission capability, we're concerned about the men and women, the personnel who operate, maintain, work on these aircraft. And so when you tell us within range, we'll let you see some of it, it's disrespectful, and it makes me wonder how we're going to get the information, how will we make the policies that we need to make. Admiral, When's the last time a comprehensive review was done across this platform?
Sir, I'm not aware of a previous comprehensive review on the V-22 program.
And is that normal not to do a comprehensive review?
Sir, this is the first comprehensive review that I have initiated since my 2 years at NAVAIR. I had, again, the purpose and intent is to improve our outcomes across safety, affordability, and availability of this platform by holistically looking, proactively looking at all aspects of the program across manning, training, equipment, so we can improve the outcomes there.
So it's never been done before. You're doing it now. We understand why you're doing it now because there's some apparent real problems. Mr. Belt, can you provide us with a breakdown of the $134.5 billion life cycle cost of the V-22 program?
Congressman, I cannot, but I would be more than happy to take that back and get you the answer.
I would appreciate it. I actually have additional questions. My time is long expired, but I would, again, Mr. Belk, urge you all to give us access to the safety investigations. I think it's important for us to be able to make policy that way. And with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for being here to help the committee with its work. I especially want to thank the Gold Star families who are in the audience here today. It is really, really important that you are here. I hope you realize that it's not only a demonstration of loyalty and love for your loved ones, but it's also important to others who serve and who may be put in an equally risky situation as your loved ones. So I thank you doubly for you being here today. Just to make sure we all understand, in March of 2022, a Marine Corps V-22 Osprey assigned to Marine Medium Tilt Rotor Squadron 261 crashed during a training flight in Norway, killing 4 Marines. In June of 2022, 5 U.S. Marines from Camp Pendleton were killed during a routine flight operation in California. In August of 2023, 3 Marines from Marine Rotational Force Darwin, a force that I traveled to Darwin, Australia, and met with them. They were killed in an Osprey crash in Australia. And in November of 2023, a U.S. Air Force Osprey carrying 8 airmen assigned to Yokota Air Base in Kadena Air Base crashed off the southern coast of Japan during a routine training mission, killing all 8 service members on board. Look, I understand the value of this aircraft. I understand, especially many CODELs I've done to Africa, the ability, to landing areas where we have there, the few airfields that we have here, the ability for a rotational, for a rotor landing. I understand that and the need to move personnel quickly, but this repeated drumbeat of fatalities is totally unacceptable. And look, the lives of our young men and women that are perishing on this aircraft have long passed the level of which a comprehensive review should have been instituted. I'm embarrassed as a member of this committee that this is the first comprehensive review we've done, given the fact that since the year 2000, we've had 54 U.S. service members killed and many, many more injured because of the structural deficiencies in this aircraft. Mr. Kurtz, you mentioned earlier that we have a rework being done on the clutch. Drag clutch on this aircraft, and that it might be ready for deployment by mid-2025. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I said mid-2025, somewhere between the mid-period of 2025 and the third quarter of that fiscal year. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chevy, Admiral Chevy, let's think about this entire program. What do you think the consequences are going to be if we have a V-22 go down and we lose more brave Marines or airmen between now and the time at which Mr. Kurtz indicates that we might have this clutch situation figured out and deployed? Your whole program's done. It's done. If another Osprey goes down, we're done. This program's done. So why don't we ground this now? Ground this now. Don't allow any other brave Marine or airman to go down in one of these aircraft. Ground them now. We'll bite the bullet for the next year or so until we get this clutch figured out. But we've already had too much carnage. We've already lost too many good men and women that
of the hopefuls to negate those distinctions.
They've joined for all the right
each would
reasons
be
to serve
a
their
MAGA
country, and then
extremist
we
who
have
would do
failed
Trump's
them
bidding
by
if
not
elected
providing
in
them
November.
with
Since
safe
mid-May,
aircraft.
more than a
I don't
month
believe this
before
aircraft
Trump's
is safe.
shortlist was narrowed,
Nothing you have
the
told me
Democratic
today
National
leads me to
Committee
believe
and
that.
the
I think it's still a very
Biden-Harris
iffy situation.
campaign
I think
sending
you've
out
conceded
MAGA
that fact.
sweepstakes memos
So it's
to
crazy
reporters and
to
interested parties.
more of our young
Email
men and women
blasts
at
focus
risk.
on four
I'm asking you to
National
ground
Committee and the
this
Biden-Harris
aircraft
campaign
until
have
we
been
get the
sent
clutch figured out, and we'll find alternative measures to service the needs that we have that this aircraft was serving. So I know my time has expired. I'll yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Sessions?
Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for having not only this hearing, but our colleagues that are engaging, I think, properly and professionally in this manner. Some conversation today has found itself where we're talking about this aircraft, because I believe one could draw a conclusion it's dangerous. I think it's a 10-year average, because we went back to 1992 a few minutes ago. If we just go back 10 years now, the 10-year average for mishaps is fewer than F-18s, F-35s, and Stallion CH-53E. Is that correct, Admiral?
To reporters and interested parties.
Sir, I don't have
The
that
email
data in
blasts
front of me.
focus on four
That's
areas:
fair.
abortion, healthcare, tax policy,
Do you
and the
believe
results of
that
the
it
2020
is
general
higher
election.
than
Should Trump choose someone like Stefanik or Scott, it
averages
could help Trump eat away at the
in
Democrats'
aircraft that are
margins in
flown
blue
by
strongholds
the
and might
United
appeal
States
to
military?
suburban voters.
So the
But
data
Democrats,
that I have in front
including
of me,
Harris herself,
the overall
have
miss
set
rate
out
for
to
the
argue
V-22
voters
across
should
the
see
three
Trump
services
as
in
nothing
Japan
but an
is at
enabler
4.1
as they
mishaps
consider
per
whether
100,000
to
flight
give him a
hours,
second term.
which is above the average rate of our other platforms across the military services on average.
Is that a 10-year or what figure is that? I'm sorry, I'm referring to a 10-year. Mine shows 3.28 per
campaign
100,000
have been
hours.
sending out
But I'm going to take
sweepstakes
your
memos
average,
to
not
reporters
mine.
and
For the
interested
Marine Corps, it
parties.
is for the 10-year. The mishap rate is 3.28, 3.29.
Okay.
I just again from my position and my authorities, my objective is to look across all of our platforms and to
Democrats are
proactively
attempting
manage
to
those
paint
reduce the
everyone
risk
Donald
of
Trump
all
is
of our
considering
platforms.
to be his running mate
So
as
I
extreme
understand
as the former president narrows a
characterization of the
field of
comparison to other
Republicans
platforms.
vying
I
to be
want
his
all of them
next
to go
vice
lower.
president.
Yes, sir.
Reported
And
shortlist covers a breadth of
point is,
personalities
there
and
might be
backgrounds.
other aircraft we need to look at also.
Yes, sir. So
That would be my point. And so we tend to, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, to talk about averages. The families that are sitting here are not averages. They're reality. And we all do agree with your assessment of what your job is and what you're attempting to do. I also look at how important the Osprey is. I've been on one downrange in Kuwait. I know that it probably is way preferred than other types of aircraft that do not have the same ability that it does, including in Afghanistan and some other places with quicker retrieval of people who might be injured that saves lives also. My point is this, that as we look at this, I think a reality check needs to be done, and I'm not sure, have we decided that it's a clutch problem? Have we decided it's a training problem? Something's happened in the last year, as Congressman Barry's talked about. Something's happening. We did not know about the F-35. You remember they were grounded because there was some reassessment made. I don't know whether it was a light or whether it was a fixture or whether it was training, but someone was missing that technical advantage. The question that I would ask you now, in your opinion, just your opinion, is it the machine or is it training? And I'm not asking you to out anybody. I'm just saying you have the facts of the case ahead of you. And I believe that it has been in the past the training. And that's why I think the numbers point to what they do. It's not the Navy's fault.
Democrats are attempting to paint everyone Donald Trump is considering to be his running mate as extreme as the former president narrows a field of Republicans vying to be his next vice president. Its reported shortlist covers a breadth of personalities and backgrounds, such as business-minded Governor Doug Burgum, in addition to more combative Republicans such as Representatives Ellie Stefanik and Byron Donalds. Many have embraced Trump's America First populism, but all have their policy niches. Three of the names on his list are black Republicans who could help inroads with the minority vote. But Democrats have attempted to zero in on perceived loyalty of the hopefuls to negate those distinctions, arguing each would be a MAGA extremist who would do Trump's bidding if elected in November. Since mid-May, more than a month before Trump's shortlist was narrowed, the Democratic National Committee and the Biden-Harris campaign have been sending out MAGA sweepstakes memos to reporters and interested
families that are involved in this and who've taken their time for their loved one, but also for others that are in the family. And I don't mean their family, I mean the Navy family, the military families that are here. And I would like to see that you would zero in on and at least give this subcommittee an opportunity to know we have zeroed in. We think that here are the contributing factors, if not the answer. So I want to thank all three of you for your service today. I would like to follow with you and to find out in writing, yes. Congressman Sessions, Chairman, here is really the answer. We're zeroing in on following factors that we think are important. Because you've already heard, if there's one more crash, someone believes we'll quit using this. I think it's a workhorse that we need. I'd like for us not to give up on the Osprey, but we do need to, and you have that responsibility to give us insight into what you're zeroing in on as the conditions by which these are going down. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
The DoD plans to buy 2,456 F-35s, and the F-35 is one of the most egregious boondoggles in the history of the Pentagon. But if we're going to buy more of those planes, we should at least make sure that they work. Mr. Belk, if an F-35 engine were to break down at sea on an aircraft carrier, what aircraft would the Navy use to transport that F-35 engine ashore to be fixed?
So I genuinely mean thank you for the question, because I do believe in this committee's oversight responsibilities, and I appreciate the opportunity to thank you for that.
Mr. Belk, come on. What plane would the Navy use to transport the broken F-35 engine?
Congressman, I don't know the answer. I'm happy to take it back and get
Thank you. Vice Admiral Chebby, do you know the answer?
And the question of what aircraft, the V-22 was designed as one of the requirements for the CMV-22 to
So the CMV-22 would be used. It's essentially one of the Navy's two kind of tow trucks. Can the C-2, the other kind of tow truck that the Navy flies, can it transport an F-35 engine?
To my knowledge, the C-2 cannot transport a F-35 engine. In that case, we would put additional spares on the aircraft carrier if we have to have it supported with the C-2.
Oh,
that
you
is
would
the-
put
that is
additional
the-
spares. Okay, I'm going to follow up on that. So the C2 cannot pick up the F-35 engine because the engine's too large. So we'd use the CMV-22. So the military didn't have the common sense to make F-35 engines transportable by all of the tow trucks it owns. So we're going to use only one of them, the CMV-22. So, Admiral Chevy, why did you not see this coming? Why did you buy F-35s that your infrastructure can't handle?
Ma'am, I'm here as the Naval Commander from an airworthiness perspective to talk about the safety of the V-22. I'm going to have to direct that question back to the appropriate personnel to address the
Mr. Bell?
question.
Congressman, we're not allowed to take that back to the department.
So you don't know why you bought F-35s for billions of dollars, and you don't have any airplanes, as we're about to see, that can
Democrats are
actually have a broken
attempting to
engine
paint
and fix it.
everyone Donald
So,
Trump is considering
on the
to be his running
CMV-22,
mate
which is the
as
one engine,
extreme
one
as the
plane that we
former
can use to go
president
get this broken engine. Let's say that the engine, the F-35 engine, broke down in the South China Sea while F-35s are engaged in securing our national interests from an increasingly assertive China. Do you know how far it would be to a fully capable maintenance depot, Mr. Belk?
Congressman, I do not.
Mr. Vice Admiral Chevy?
Can you clarify your question, please?
An F-35 engine is broken down on an aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. How far is it to get that F-35 engine to a place where we can fix it?
I'm going to have to direct it to the F-35 Joint Program Office to kind of answer that.
Okay, it is 7,200 miles to a small facility in Australia and 14,500 miles to a full-scale U.S. facility. And I'm sure the CMV-22 would not fly all that distance, but it needs to be able to pick up the engine and get it to the next airport where it can then be flown for repair. Admiral Chevy, how often is the CMV-22 mission capable?
The overall mission capable rate, I do not have that in front. I'm not sure, Gary, if you have.
Mr. Kurtz?
I don't have that information.
Mr. Belk?
Ma'am, do not have that information.
Guys, you're here for a hearing on this very aircraft. Now, you've been deferring on the F-35, but the CMV-22 is what we're talking about here today. It's the Navy's version of the Osprey. So the data I've seen suggests that it can only fly 44% of the time. It costs $85 million per aircraft, and it can fly 44% of the time. That is absolutely absurd. So if the military has made fixing an F-35 engine that hard for itself, surely you have, as you mentioned, Admiral Chevy, spare engines that you can swap in when something goes wrong. Mr. Belk, has the DoD purchased spare F-35 engines?
Ma'am, I do not have that information.
No, they have not. So it's going to be tough to put those on the aircraft carrier, Admiral Chevy, when you don't have any. So the only plan we have when an F-35 engine breaks down is to fly it thousands of miles. But to do that, the plane only works part of the time. Mr. Belk, how long, is the CMV-22 allowed to fly from the nearest airport?
Republicans such as
Ma'am, I defer that to Admiral Chevy.
Admiral Chevy.
Ma'am, the return to flight criteria was based on the data.
All right, Admiral Chevy, 30 minutes. So often the CMV-22 doesn't work more than half the time. If it works, it's only allowed to fly 30 minutes from an airport. But these failures both leave the F-35 with broken engines stranded on aircraft carriers. And get this, we're still buying more of these incredibly expensive F-35 jets. And we're doing that knowing that we cannot fix those engines because the CMV-22 is a disaster. And by the way, you all want to buy more of those too. Admiral Chevy, do you stand by this state of affairs? Would you like to blame Mr. Belk or Mr.
Many
Kurtz?
have embraced Trump's America First populism, but all have their
Charlie readiness level aboard aircraft is above 90%.
Okay, 10% of the time it isn't ready and the engine might be part of it. I'm asking you, should we spend billions of dollars on F-35s that you cannot repair?
Inroads with the minority vote. But
Ma'am,
Democrats have attempted
my
to zero
objective
in
as the
on
Naval
perceived
Commander is to make
loyalty
sure
of the hopefuls to
I
negate
deliver
both
the warfighting capability the fleet needs to win at a cost we can
perceived
afford.
loyalty of the
The
hope
services
My objective,
decide
Mr. Chevy, Admiral Chevy,
distinctions,
my
arguing
objective
each would
as a
be
U.S.
MAGA
congressperson
extremist who
is to
would
make
do
sure that
Trump's
our
bidding
tax
if
dollars
elected
are
in
being
November.
spent to actually
Since
keep
mid-May,
us safe,
more than a month
not line the
before Trump's
pockets
shortlist was narrowed,
of
the
defense
Democratic
contractors for
National Committee
boondoggles.
and the
I yield
Biden-Harris
back.
campaign have been sending out
Thank you,
MAGA
Mr. Perry.
beefsteaks memos to reporters and
Thank you, Mr.
interested
Chairman.
parties.
Gentlemen, it's good to see you here. Thank you very much.
Shortlist was
Got some
narrowed.
questions for
The
you. I
Democratic
guess I'll start
National
with you,
Committee
Admiral
and
Chebby,
the
and I think I
Biden-Harris
understand the
campaign
limitations
have been sending
of
out MAGA
what you can
beefsteaks
answer.
memos.
However, I am concerned that you don't know the OR rate. I would think that anybody in your position would know the
National
OR rate of
Committee
every
and the
single
Biden-Harris
aircraft
campaign
that
have been sending out MAGA
within your
beefsteaks
command purview.
memos
But
to reporters
the
and
V-22,
interested
as
parties.
I understand, was added to the Marine Helicorps Squadron HMX-1 to support the presidential operations, heliborne operations. But the aircraft does not carry the president. Is there some reason that we don't know about, or is there something obvious that we should know about, that we will carry the president's support staff but not the president?
Sir, from my position as airworthiness, the aircraft
Biden-Harris
has
campaign
been returned to flight with controls in place.
campaign
The
have
decision
been sending
of
out
what,
MAGA
who
beefsteaks
flies on what
memos to
airplanes is
reporters
beyond my
and
control.
So I understand maybe you didn't make the decision, but do you know why it is? Like, we'll fly the presidential support staff, reporters, staff members, equipment in a V-22, but we won't fly the president in one, which would limit, because a V-22 is pretty fast compared to what the president's in. Who makes that decision? And I'm just asking, do you know why it is that? Maybe Mr. Belk knows. Does anybody know on the panel?
Sir, I do not know.
Anybody else? Okay.
Congressman, I don't know.
All right, I'd love that answer, if you can get back to us with that. Now, the gentlelady from California asked a lot of questions about the F-35's engines and the V-22. Seems to me, I look at the sling load capability of the 22, 15,000, internal 20,000. And the F-35, I'm going to be generous, I think, because it says 3,750 is the weight of the engine. So let's say 4,000 pounds. Does it cube out before it grosses? Is that okay? So the Admiral says it. What about sling? Did we not sling load F-35 engines? Is there some policy not to sling load?
Sir, I'm not aware. It does cube out, though, so that's
Okay, so I got another question for you. You know, all of us that flew various aircraft, we all know the CH-53 is the only heavy lift helicopter in the inventory. Even those who flew, like me, the 47, the 53 is it. I get it, Admiral, I'll give you that. But the sling capacity is 30,000. The 36,000 pound payload, does it cube out in a 53 also?
Sir, I'm going to hand that over to the PEO. I'm unaware.
Sir, I'm unaware of the specific cube out, but to your point, it does have that lift capacity as you have described.
So why aren't we using 53s? You guys own them, right? The Army doesn't have them. The Air Force has some payloads, right? So what's the problem? Is it inter-service rivalry that we can't use a 53 in the Navy to move a jet engine? What's happening? I'm just asking. I don't know.
Sure, I'll just answer from you're asking, the equivalent of the FAA authority.
Yeah.
What the operational commanders are doing with their assets. That is beyond the scope of
Okay.
our responsibility.
Okay, fair enough. It's beyond your scope, and I understand, sir. You take orders. Yours is not to question why. I get it. But for the sake of those who have died, and their families are sitting here behind you, that signed up, wanted to go support and defend their country and everything we believe in, and probably looked at the Osprey and said, this thing's awesome, man. I can't wait to get in it. But there was a lot of us that looked at it and said, holy mother of God, how's this thing going to stay together in flight? And when those nacelles start rotating after the whole wing has been put back to center and all the parts that have to come back together, and what Mr. Lynch was talking about, sprag clutches that have to let go when one engine quits so that you can get the thing on the ground and stay alive, there's a lot of concerns. And we can't, for the sake of we've got to retire the 46, we can't bring the 22 online before it's ready to go because, well, we got to get rid of the 46 and we got a lot of money invested in this thing and the train's rolling. People's lives are at stake and have been lost. I wonder why the Navy just won't buy 47s. 47 was a big 46, right? 46 was, we called it a baby Chinook. I know you'd probably averse to that, and I understand why, but that's what we called it. But the 47's highly capable. It's not as fast as an Osprey, but nothing's as fast as an Osprey in the vertical arena because of the mechanics of it. But when you got to get engines on the deck and keep people alive, use the damn thing that works. And the V-22 has got obvious problems, evidenced by the people sitting behind you, which leads me to my next and final question. The Army's preparing to launch the V-280 Valor program. I know I'm talking about the Army program here to replace the Black Hawk fleet. Now, we've learned a lot with the V-22, but apparently we haven't learned enough, whether it's like my good friend from Texas says, training, or whether it's the mechanics. Service members are dying, which is unacceptable. It's bad enough they die in combat, but it's unacceptable that they die either due to lack of training, complexity of the aircraft, or the aircraft itself. What lessons can any of one of you tell us that we have learned on the 22 that we're not going to replicate on the 280?
Sir, certainly as you reference, it's an Army program. It is not a program that I have insight into with regards to my portfolio, so I can't speak to where we are with regards to the V-280 and what the Army is currently doing at this time.
What is the 22 going to be replaced with?
Sir, I am not aware of at this point.
Admiral?
At this time, the service and plans for replacement of the V-22.
You're sure that the CMV-22 is, halfway through the production run, so it is a brand new aircraft. I'm not sure any plans right now are in place to replace the CMV-22.
Well, I will say this, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll yield back. I get, and it is expensive halfway through the life cycle, but if we can't get it right, at some point we have to acknowledge we just can't get it right. This thing shouldn't fly because it's too dangerous. We get the concept. We would love to do it. It's awesome to look at. When it's working right, it's awesome. But it's not working right enough to accept, and there are other acceptable alternatives. And oh my God, even though we're in the Navy, we'll put a different coat of paint on this damn thing and call it some kind of Navy term and fly this 47 instead, or maybe even better, 53, highly capable in the Navy's program. Let's use that and just say, look, we're not going to get there quite as fast because we don't have an Osprey, but we're going to get there alive, which is really damn important to the mission, and it's really important to the people that want to serve in the United States Uniformed Services, do their service, protect their country, but then
if I'm Joe Biden and I'm on the debate stage with Donald Trump,
Chairman, I yield.
And he starts talking about Hunter Biden,
thank you,
as some sort of retort against his own 34 felonies, I'd stop, I'd turn, I'd look around the stage and go, excuse me, hold on, hold on. I don't see Hunter Biden up here. Hold on, Donald, let me check.
It's clear that
maybe I don't see Eric over there. Wait, Eric's not here, so I'm not running against Eric. I'm running against you, Donald, and you're not running against Hunter Biden or the ghost of Hunter Biden, who's not here. You're running against me. And up here are the two people that are going to run this country for the next 4 years. Of the two of us, only one has been convicted of a felony, and you've been convicted of 34 felonies, Donald. So
keeping the Osprey in use even during this period of time where we're still looking at trying to make it even safer is a decision that you stand behind and that you are have been vocal about here today. So I do want to thank you for that. But I just want to also just reiterate some of the concern that has been shared by my colleagues. I think clearly those of us here in the subcommittee, I think many of us spoke to our concerns about the V-22, about its safety, certainly about its use during this time where we're trying to make it even safer, and certainly about not having complete access to all of the safety information that members of the subcommittee would like to have. And so I just want to highlight those real concerns. This is an important function of this body to do this oversight and to work with all of you to have the absolute safest possible vehicles and aircraft that we can have. And so I want to urge the DoD and all of our partners to really work with us
because I've heard a lot of people talking about this concern.
All the information that we need
Mike Barnacle?
to make the
if I'm Joe
decision
Biden and I'm on the
oversight,
debate stage with Donald Trump,
the oversight that we're required.
and he
to
starts
do.
talking about
I also
Hunter Biden
just want to add
as some sort of
well
retort against
that,
his own 34 felonies.
I think that
I'd stop, I'd turn,
difference
I'd look
of,
around the stage and go, excuse me,
the rate
hold
of
on.
discrepancy that
Hold on.
exists between
I don't
the Air
see
Force
Hunter Biden
and the
up here.
Marines,
Hold on, Donald,
I think is a
let me
real
check.
problem. And I think it's
I don't see Eric over there. Wait, Eric's not here, so
to have some follow-up
I'm not
as to
running
why
against
that,
Eric.
That difference.
I'm running against
exists,
you, Donald, and you're not running against
the
Hunter
rate
Biden or the ghost of Hunter Biden, who's not here.
And I
You're
think that's
running
something we
against
discussed
me.
earlier. I'd like to get more.
And up
more
here,
into
the two
that.
people that are going to
And
run
finally,
this
I just
country
wanna-
for the
to
next 4
families,
years,
I
of
really
the two of
appreciate you
us, only
being
one
here.
has
I know
been
it'll probably be hard.
convicted
This is
of a
also
felony, and
for
you've
all
been
of you to
convicted of
sit through, but I
34
also
felonies,
know
Donald.
that not only do you want to honor your loved ones, but you also want a strong military that keeps every single person that serves safe, and I really appreciate that. So thank you all for being here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'd like to thank the families for being here again today. You being here is very important because I don't even want to drop this thing today. There were a surprising number of questions that I felt you guys didn't have answers to. Mr. Garcia brings up the difference between accidents rates in the Marines and the Air Force, and I don't see how we can really adequately address this unless we have a look at those safety investigations. So we're going to do follow-up that in some fashion because I think we have to see that. You're not the first military group that's been before us. We've had the military before us in the past, and I always feel they should be a little more transparent. The military itself is not, the Department of Defense hasn't done an audit, which isn't your fault, in something like 30 years, which is kind of an insult to Congress. But in any event, I think we've established that we could get some more information. I mean, whenever I hear about one of these things going down, and it's happened intermittently over the last 30 years now, I guess, it always bothers me because it's one thing to lose somebody in combat, but to lose somebody in a non-combat situation should be almost inexcusable, and it's something that you never see in the private sector. I realize, you know, what your guys are doing is a lot more technical, a lot more difficult than that, but nevertheless, it always bothers me, and I think there's something wrong with it, and it'd bother me a lot more if I was one of the folks sitting there behind you. So I'll assure you folks that we're not going to let this matter drop. For whatever reason, they're not giving us the result of the safety investigations, and staff has contacted them before, and they always turn them down on things that I think we should get. So the ranking member and I aren't going to let that drop. And with that, I will have to say, for this before, without objection, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. If there's no further business, without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.